All right, everybody, welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. This is Relationship Tuesday here on the show. And of course, we're excited to have you join with us. Now, to begin our conversations this morning, we want to talk about setting boundaries in relationships. And to discuss this topic, I have Faith Marithi with me, who's a relationship self-awareness coach. Karibu sana to the show.
Thank you, Joyce.
First of all, allow me to ask you, what is a relationship self-awareness coach? Like, what does that actually involve and what do you deal with?
Okay. I think after dealing with women and men in relationships for the last 10 years, I realized the major issue is lack of self-awareness. And if people had more self-awareness and they were aware of their strengths, weaknesses, and limits, then they'll be able to really set boundaries.
Okay.
Yes.
So, to you, the first step then is that self-awareness.
Oh, yes, I believe
What
so.
does it do particularly or necessarily in as far as setting those boundaries?
In fact, most times I always say, before you say I love you, figure out the I. You know, because who is the I when you say I love you? And then again, why boundaries? I believe boundaries are values.
Okay.
Now, values become the boundaries that will protect you in a relationship. So if you don't have values, that means you don't have boundaries. If you don't have boundaries, that means you don't appreciate the values you have.
Right.
And begins with self-awareness.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So these are boundaries, these are values based on, your belief system.
Oh, yes.
It's not somebody imposing the boundary on you.
Exactly.
You have to define it for yourself.
Most times we live in maybe we live in a society that defines who we are. And so sometimes we get lost, not knowing who really we are. So for you to be able to set effective boundaries, you need to know who you are. You need to value who you are.
Right.
And that is also beginning setting different values in different aspects of a relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when we're talking about boundaries, I mean, what sort of things are we talking about as far as relationships?
Okay. I have different 5 or 7. First, let's start with spiritual boundaries.
Okay.
Many people never realize they need to have boundaries. And spiritual boundaries are very key. I believe before we do anything in life, it is manifested spiritually first. But do we really have spiritual boundaries? Do we even know what it means?
Yeah.
Then, of course, we have communication boundaries. We have sexual boundaries, which people really think they're there. In fact, most times people always ask me, when you're married, do you have sexual boundaries? And I'm like, yes, they are. They're there. We have personal boundaries. We have financial boundaries. And so sometimes you need to ask someone, what's your value system? Boundaries are to protect you from harming yourself or other people harming you.
Right.
Yes.
Wow. So these are things that a lot of us then kind of don't really pay a lot of attention to. We tend not to focus in on them.
Yes.
And I think that's a good point to be able to ask our audience, what are your boundaries in your relationships? What do you think are some of the things that people should be paying attention to? Or what would you like your partner to pay attention to in your relationship, right? So please SMS, and the line is 22999. You can also reach us on our social media platforms. That's at Switch TV Kenya on Instagram and at Switch TV, or rather Switch TV Kenya on Facebook and Twitter, and at Switch TV KE on Instagram. And I'll be happy to take in your feedback. I know we have a post that's going to be running on Facebook as well. I'll be checking out your comments and your feedback there. So 22999 is the SMS line. So it's interesting that you're talking about even sexual boundaries within marriage. Just describe that a bit more for us.
I look at it from value system. For example, if I'm allowed, sometimes we're in a mess because we lack boundaries. Probably we are not assertive enough. And again, I look at, if you're married, people would ask, is anal sex okay? If for me it is not okay, then that's a boundary.
Right.
But have I communicated that to my spouse? How far is too far for me?
Okay.
How far is too far for my faith?
Right.
But have I communicated that? Now, I look at it in a way that if I break my own values, that means I'm hurt, I'm unhappy, and as time goes by, I become very bitter.
Right.
But then again, it's not healthy for the relationship.
Right.
So it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
One of the ways I look at boundaries is For example, if you live in a gated community or your house is fenced, you use one gate. That means the visitors use the same gate entry and you use the same entry. You don't jump over the fence.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So the fence is there to protect you and also to protect you from the outsiders.
Right.
So meaning, if it is a value system, you also honor that value system and your visitors also honor that value system. So it starts with you.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me ask you this then. In terms of relationships, some of the boundaries could be, you know, not to be dating someone else, right, while you're with me, or that you won't be seeing someone else while you're with me. But we find that there's a tremendous culture of cheating,
Yes.
even of polygamy, and I guess in some respects that's kind of cultural. But are those values that, or boundaries that, because it seems like we sort of just kind of take that for granted, and actually there's some people who even justify it, but and says things like, well, which man is not going to cheat, or which man is not going to have more than one woman? Is that a boundary that is under threat?
Yes, it is, but again, also it begins with the foundation. I believe if we are dating, then fidelity is a boundary, then I should sustain it. That means I will not be intimate with you until marriage. If fidelity is a boundary, and I'm looking at it from also spiritual perspective. But again, I go ahead because of feelings and ignore the fidelity boundary. And then we'll do what? Compromise. After marriage, I still want to claim about what? Fidelity.
Right.
I look at it this, if at the dating stage we are still compromising on the fidelity value, then definitely we'll compromise it after marriage.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So it's more sitting the foundation.
Right. And I think you raise a good point, because a lot of times people sort of expect when you get married is now when you like switch on the light for now when the rules begin to play. But really dating is a preamble to marriage. And that's how we should be viewing
Oh,
it.
yes.
So talk to us about the signs of sort of boundaries being very fluid or being broken through while dating, and whether those then are maybe even red flags for now marriage, like the actual marriage covenant.
Okay. If there's still infidelity while we are dating, I don't think we'd be talking about forgiveness. It's about character. And so it would be best to do what? To go separate ways. Or choose counseling until it's dealt with without rushing into marriage. Some of these things need to be addressed from a foundational stage while you're dating. What you compromise, you can tolerate. Then you realize later you're not able to do what to tolerate. Look at financial boundaries again. You're dating, and probably due to self-esteem, you find yourself sponsoring your spouse while you're still dating. But realize they have a habit of taking from you
Kuombaomba pesa saa yote.
and never giving back.
Yeah.
It can be an issue after marriage. It's a red flag. Again, what about lies? Honesty. They are always red flags. If you're really willing to see through, they are always red flags. What about spirituality? Where one person says, okay, probably you go to church, or the other person is born again, and the other person just says, we serve, one God. Again, that's what I say. Or you go to different churches. Maybe it's okay.
Yeah.
While you're dating, but have you considered when you start raising your children, one of you has to compromise their faith and join the other?
Yeah.
And so, of course, there's conflict.
Wow.
At the foundation stage, if you can set things right, then chances are you're able to save a marriage that has not yet already begun. Yes.
Absolutely. Hey guys, I hope you're paying keen attention to this discussion here this morning that I'm having with Faith Murithi, who once again is a relationship self-awareness coach. We're talking about setting boundaries in your relationship. And one of the things that is coming out very strongly is that for you to have a successful marriage, or at least give your marriage a fighting chance, a lot of those boundaries need to have been identified and, articulated well before, particularly even in the dating stage. And just before the break, break, you had started telling us about financial boundaries. So we've mentioned a few. We've talked about spiritual, there's communication, there's sexual boundaries, there's even financial boundaries. I don't know if there are a few others, and I guess you'll mention those for us. But as we continue with financial boundaries, that always tends to be quite a big one, you know, in relationships, be it at the dating stage or even during marriage. And I'm just wondering, because a lot of times we talk about, you know, who should take which role in a relationship. And so how do you reconcile financial boundaries in a marriage with, say, allowing your husband to be the head of the family?
Okay, I believe financial is a big issue. In fact, there are people who actually separate because of finances. And I also believe it should be tackled well during premarital.
Yeah.
You know, rarely do we discuss about finances while we're dating, who pays the bills, or do we pay the bills, or do we even share the idea of we eat from the same pot? Like your money is my money and my money is your money. There's no my money, it's our money, and what does it do? And again, it goes back to self-awareness. Are you a spender or a saver? Most times you rarely find two savers or two spenders. One of you is a saver, one of you is a spender. But how do you relate in a harmonious way in the relationship when it comes to money? Is it a topic that both are willing to discuss? If you're willing to discuss it from the foundational stage. Then after marriage, you can do a budget together. Budget works.
Okay.
Do a budget together. And one of the things also, when introducing it at an early stage, are you aware how much your girlfriend spends on daily basis? Are you aware the hair, and everything else?
Kidogo tuke budget ni ya 15K kusle. Maze.
And again, also the guy side. And things like if you're taking care of your family should be disclosed.
Sure.
Because it's not going to go away after you say I do.
Yeah.
You know?
If you're those people educating 5 of your cousins,
Oh.
Maze, say, tell you, it's not fair. How do we get married? Then kidogo, all your cousins are being educated. It's an educational scheme. No, let's not do
Cousins
that.
is a little far-fetched, but at least siblings, please share.
Yeah.
If you're willing to, if you're investing like in a mortgage for your parents, just before the wedding, please share, because that's long-term and it's going to affect our relationship.
All right, let's get to
yes.
some questions here. Someone says, okay, what is the meaning of fidelity? Very quickly, just answer that question for us, and then I'll get to the rest of the questions.
Fidelity, you can look at it in two ways. One way is being faithful to one spouse. The people who look at it from before marriage and after marriage, or you can look at it the other way if you're not subscribing to the faith perspective. If you look at it from a faith perspective, then fidelity means we are abstaining until marriage, and I'm committed to you till death
do us part.
Yes.
Okay. I like this question here because it's not necessarily about a romantic relationship, but someone says, hey Joyce, I'm Tabby from Riru. You love the hairstyle, asante sana. And you say, how should I put boundaries with an over-controlling parent? Is there an opportunity for a young person living in their parents' house to sort of set a boundary there?
It's very possible, but you have to learn to be assertive. You can't use threats. You can't use withdrawals. You have to be very assertive, sit down with a parent and be gentle. Give them all respect that is due to them.
Okay.
And especially even when it comes to tone.
Yeah.
Because the first sign of disrespect can be trust in your tone. And then let them know, this is what I would prefer. And then also, once you set those boundaries, boundaries come with consequences.
Yeah.
You see, there are times you find your siblings, and a parent would ask one sibling for money, but again also ask another sibling for money. So one of the ways you do is both of you discuss as siblings and then respond to the parent.
Okay.
So it comes from how you communicate the boundaries is very important, as long as you're communicating respect to the parent.
Okay,
Yes.
let's get to some more questions. Hello, Joyce. I love the discussion, setting boundaries. I'm Eric from K West. For me, normally I'm an introvert and I get pissed off quickly. How can she advise? For someone who, this I guess would be now like social boundaries. So, and I can totally relate to him, maybe not getting pissed off as fast, but like that I am an introvert and there's a way that you just kind of want your space. Yeah.
Okay. It comes from understanding also your personality. Most people actually don't know their personality. And I mean, there are major four ones, like the choleric, sanguines, and we have melancholics and phlegmatics. It's knowing who you are and letting other people know who they are. And again, do you also know the people you're in relationship with? If you're dating a sanguine, you know it's okay to tell them, you know what, I enjoy your company, but sometimes I also enjoy my space. So is it possible we just meet next week and continue this conversation? Be assertive. They will appreciate than shutting them down and just getting out of control. Yes.
Okay. Someone else says, my boyfriend wants to have sex with me and I'm yet to go to campus, but he is working. He said he will leave me after telling him I don't want sex. I love him and I don't want him to leave me. What should I do?
Okay, maybe I should ask her what love is. Maybe we go back to love. Is it a feeling or is it a commitment? What really love is? And again, what's the end game? She's yet to go to campus. If that girl was to propose today, would she say yes?
Or if she was to get pregnant and then has to not go to campus.
The consequences. And so if she values her values, it's not about just values. If she values her values, then she's willing to pay a price for sustaining the values.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, someone here shares something really great with us. They say boundaries. Yes, thanks a lot for bringing up the topic because now I can see where I went wrong with my relationship. I lost my family of 3 due to lack of boundaries. Soy Kaleta Mazoezano and Mother Rao. Hashtag full circle with Joyce. Thank you very much for sharing that comment with us. Certainly do appreciate you. Kemi from Egesa, you say, loving this relationship Tuesday. Relationships should have limits and boundaries. You can't just be dictated because you love someone. You should be yourself like a lady of substance. And I think that goes back to you also saying, you know, what is love? What is how are you defining your relationship? Because surely for someone to say that if you don't give them this, they're going to go.
That's manipulation.
That is manipulation.
Oh, yes.
That's not love by any means. All right.
And to add on that, the reason why most times we compromise on our values, you find either you lack assertiveness, you lack self-awareness, or you have emotional baggage.
And I just wanted to ask as we get ready to wrap up, a lot of times some of the boundaries, the bigger questions about boundaries involve our in-laws and dealing with, you know, extended family members and relatives. What would be your counsel on that?
If you're not yet married, the entry is very important, how you relate. Don't allow familiarity because familiarity breeds what? Contempt. Learn to respect people just the way they are and they'll return back that respect. And if you have to really voice, you know, you have to reach to a level where you have to voice your boundaries, then do it in a manner that is very respectable and without bickering, without nagging, without threats, without withdrawing.
Excellent. I've been talking to Faith Muridi, relationship and self-awareness coach. Thank you so much for joining us and for your insights here on the show. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, Dayan Masinde is going to be joining us to talk about grand gestures in relationships. Hey, najua boy child anasema jamini wanasumbuliwa sana, but hata madam, even us, we can do grand gestures. Or should we just not? Maybe we should just throw all of them out the window. This and much more when we come back on Full Circle with Joyce.